Obama gave a speech in response to yesterday's mass shooting, and he was pissed. Let's listen.
We are not the only country on earth that has people with mental illnesses or want to do harm to other people. We are the only advanced country on earth that sees these kinds of mass shootings every few months. Earlier this year, I answered a question in an interview by saying, the United States of America is the one advanced nation on earth in which we do not have sufficient common sense gun safety laws, even in the face of repeated mass killings. And later that day, there was a mass shooting at a movie theater in Lafayette, Louisiana. That day. Somehow this has become routine. The reporting is routine. My response here at this podium ends up being routine. The conversation in the aftermath of it, we've become numb to this. We talked about this after Columbine and Blacksburg, after Tucson, after Newtown, after Aurora, after Charleston. It cannot be this easy for somebody who wants to inflict harm on other people to get his or her hands on a gun. And what's become routine, of course, is the response of those who oppose any kind of common sense gun legislation. Right now, I can imagine the press releases being cranked out. We need more guns, they'll argue. Fewer gun safety laws. Does anybody really believe that? There are scores of responsible gun owners in this country. They know that's not true. We know because of the polling that says the majority of Americans understand we should be changing these laws, including the majority of responsible, law-abiding gun owners. There is a gun for roughly every man, woman, and child in America. So how can you, with a straight face, make the argument that more guns will make us safer? We know that states with the most gun laws tend to have the fewest gun deaths. So the notion that gun laws don't work or just will make it harder for law-abiding citizens and criminals will still get their guns, it's not borne out by the evidence. We know that other countries, in response to one mass shooting, have been able to craft laws that almost eliminate mass shootings. Friends of ours, allies of ours, Great Britain, Australia, countries like ours. So we know there are ways to prevent it. And of course, what's also routine is that somebody somewhere will comment and say, Obama politicized this issue. Well, this is something we should politicize.
1515.
It is relevant to our common life together, to the body politic. I would ask news organizations, because I won't put these facts forward, have news organizations tally up the number of Americans who've been killed through terrorist attacks over the last decade and the number of Americans who've been killed by gun violence. And post those side by side on your news reports.
Let's do just that. All right, so what we see here is terrorism deaths versus gun-related deaths in the U.S. Terrorism deaths in the United States in the year 2014, there were a total of 18. Now, you can bicker over that number a little bit and say, well, this one should have counted as terrorism and it didn't, this one shouldn't have and it did, or whatever. But ballpark, you can say about 18 terrorism deaths in the year 2014. How about terrorism deaths in the U.S. from 1970 to 2014? 3,521. Now, as you can see there, gun violence deaths in the U.S. just in 2015, 8,512. So the bottom line is, if you are more concerned about terrorism at the moment in America, you are empirically incorrect in what you're concerned about. You're much more likely to be killed by your garden variety psychopath with easy access to a gun. It's an uncomfortable fact of reality that people don't like to admit because it doesn't coincide with the way the media covers it and the way that we're raised to think. It's easy to fear the violence of the other. Ooh, it's foreign and it's different and they have the intent to harm. And you can go down a laundry list of the reasons why we fear violence that statistically isn't as probable. But what I'm begging my audience to do, and I think you guys have already done this because by and large I think you're very smart, is just to accept the facts of reality and to understand that, arguments from narratives are not correct by default. Somebody, oh my God, the scary Muslim terrorists are coming. Okay, but let's look at the numbers and see what the biggest threat is to you in your life. I mean, you're much more likely to die from police brutality in America than you are to die from a Muslim terrorist, or any terrorist for that matter. So it's really important to know this. Now, I want to get into more numbers here so you really see the scope of the problem, if this doesn't already illustrate it. The Sandy Hook shooting was in December 2012. How many people have died from gun violence in America since then? You ready for this? This is from Slate. Quote, using the most recent CDC estimates for yearly deaths by guns in the United States, it is likely that as of today, roughly 99,019 people have been killed. So just from Sandy Hook until today, 2012 until today, 99,000 people have died from gun violence in America. Now understand, that's all-inclusive. So that means homicides, that means suicides, that means accidents, that means all of the gun deaths in America from then until now. But that number's fucking overwhelming! It's fucking overwhelming! When you just look at murders, so gun murders, that number every year is between 8 and 10,000! It's an overwhelming number. Now, to put that in perspective further, in the Korean War, 54,246 Americans died. So we've had more than a Korean War on our own soil since Sandy Hook. All right, more. How about in the Revolutionary War, how many people died? 25,000. Are you kidding me? We've had basically 4 revolutionary wars since Sandy Hook on our own soil because there's fucking guns everywhere and a lot of crazy people. All right, how about in the War on Terror? How many Americans died? 6,717. You do the math on that. How many War on Terrors have we had at home simply because there's over 300 million guns? And in Vietnam, 58,209 American soldiers died. We've had more than a Vietnam on our own soil. Almost 2 Vietnams on our own soil. Since Sandy Hook, which was not that long ago, I remember reporting the story. So, I mean, this is unbelievable. 36 gun deaths on average happen every day in America. If your response is to do nothing, I question your intelligence. Like, it's one thing to disagree with the specific policy solutions that Obama wants or I want or anybody else on the left wants. It's another thing completely to say, I don't want to do anything about it. Well, okay, the next time you want to fearmonger about how bad Islamic terrorists are, be consistent and shut the fuck up. I believe I have a right to any gun ever, and this is the price of freedom for 32,000 people or so to die every year. Okay, well then, why are you not talking about the price of freedom in the face of other enemies, like foreign terrorists? You don't say about, oh my God, take away our Fourth Amendment rights, and let's invade every country there is. You're not being objective, you're not being consistent in the way that you reason about this. And finally, let me just address some of Obama's points there. To his politicizing point, it's very similar to a point I made the same day. It already is political. So, oh my God, you can't politicize this. No, it already is political. So you shouldn't depoliticize it. We're talking about gun deaths in America. The federal government makes gun policy. To say it's not political is an outright lie. Of course it's political. And we already have the most lax gun laws in the modern world. So when conservatives say, well, more guns would solve this, or we just need fewer gun laws. No. We've already done the empirical test, dipshit. If you compare the U.S., which has the laxest gun laws in the modern world, to other modern nations, we have more gun violence. By a mile! So, what does that mean? It means that you are simply incorrect in your belief system. Because if what you said were true, and the weaker the gun laws, the safer you are, well, then we would already be the safest nation in the modern world. You can't get around this fact because it's a stone-cold fact. And finally, understand, guys, we're not talking about anything extreme here. We're not talking about gun confiscation. If you think that is what we're talking about, you're not fucking listening and you're strawmanning the shit out of us. So what is Obama talking about? And what am I talking about? This is an issue where I actually happen to agree almost 100% with the Democrats with their original proposal. So they want a universal background check, get rid of the gun show loophole, which allows 40% of gun purchases in America to have no background check associated with it whatsoever. So do a universal background check, limit high-capacity magazines, ban certain kinds of assault weapons, which can be categorized more easily along with weapons of war and not for sport, and do a gun buyback program. That's really all we're talking about here. And I give Obama a lot of credit for coming out here and being strong, having a harsh tone, and saying enough is enough. But I need all the other Democrats to wake the fuck up and do the same thing. Get on the same page and hammer this message home on the Sunday shows. All of the polls are on your side. A majority of Democrats, a majority of independents, a majority of Republicans, and a majority of NRA members agree with some of your proposals. Like, for example, the universal background checks. Over 90% of the American people are on that page, so why haven't we gotten it done? We haven't gotten it done because the NRA, who gets their money from the gun manufacturers, specifically the leadership of the NRA, they pay the Republicans to basically block everything. Again, the membership of the NRA is more reasonable. They want background checks. But the leadership of the NRA, they're paying the politicians to do the bidding of the gun manufacturers and block all gun reform. All gun reform. So you know what you do, Democrats? You shame them. You go out on the Sunday shows and you all use the same talking points, which are true, which is over 90% of the American people want a universal background check, and Mitch McConnell and John Boehner blocked it last time we brought it up. Why don't you call your Republican congressmen and ask them why they're fascists? Why they don't care about what the American people want? This is what you do. You hammer it home. You go to work. You cite specific poll numbers. You let everybody know out there, this isn't a choice, guys. This isn't a debate. We are right, and we are representing you, and the Republicans are wrong, and they are blocking progress, and as a result of what they're doing, more people are going to die. So you crush them with that, you try to get your policy, and then, by the way, if you argue effectively, you also win the next election. But I won't hold my breath, because while this was a great moment from Obama, is this going to continue? I fear it's not going to continue, because every other mass shooting, people get outraged for 2 days to a week max, and then we move right along. That shouldn't be the case.